Hello, kindred spirits. Welcome to the Magical Mystical Divinations podcast. I'm your host, Southern Mystic Tama P, creator of mysticdivinations.com. That's mystic with a K, by the way. I invite you into my sacred space located in the heart of East Tennessee. Grab your favorite drink and hang out with me for a spell as we connect on a higher level. So today is my 13th episode of Season 1, and I would like to discuss why the number 13 is considered unlucky and other superstitions like that. I am recording this in October with leaves on the ground and spooky decorations in my yard and inside my home. So I want to dedicate this entire month to talking about spooky things, which can and does include superstition. Also, like I said, this is my 13th episode, and the number 13th is riddled with superstition. I don't believe the number 13 to be bad. And to use one of my favorite cartoon characters' quotes by Jessica Rabbit in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, she said, "I'm not bad, I'm just drawn that way." Well, I feel like the number 13 was drawn that way. It's really not a bad number. Or is it? After all, according to the Stress Management Center and Phobia Institute in Asheville, North Carolina, more than 80% of high-rise buildings in the United States do not have a 13th floor. And the vast majority of hotels, hospitals, and airports avoid using the number for rooms and gates as well. So as we explore superstitions during this episode, we will come back to poor, unfavored number 13. Growing up in the southern part of the United States and being raised by a parent who was born in the Appalachian Mountains, I was exposed to a lot of superstitious beliefs. As a result, I am fascinated with superstitions and folklore. So much so that my first book was titled Ghost Tales and Superstitions of Southern Appalachian Mountains. It's a lot more about ghost tales than superstition, but superstition is sprinkled all throughout. But let's define the word superstition. The Britannica Dictionary definition of superstition is a belief or way of behaving that is based on fear of the unknown and faith in magic or luck, or a belief that certain events or things will bring good or bad luck. That's interesting. The Merriam-Webster defines superstition as a belief or practice resulting from ignorance, fear of the unknown, trust in magic or chance, or a false conception of causation. Those definitions seem a tad insulting or harsh because a little bit of fear is healthy when it's in moderation because it puts us on alert so that our senses are amplified and more keen. But let me look a little deeper into the definition of superstition. The Cambridge Dictionary defines superstition as a belief that is not based on reason or scientific thinking, and that explains the causes for events in ways that are connected to magic. Okay, so Cambridge was a little gentler with its definition. At least it didn't insinuate that people are ignorant who are superstitious. But again, the definition of ignorance is a lack of knowledge or information. So I really don't feel too insulted because I constantly seek knowledge and information, and I make informed choices as a result. So here are some examples of superstition. You've heard these, they're all common. Knocking on wood to encourage good luck, throwing salt over your shoulder to avoid bad luck, walking under a ladder will bring bad luck. A broken mirror is believed to bring 7 years of bad luck. Step on a crack, break your mother's back. Well, no one should ever want to break their poor mother's back. And of course, there is the Friday, the 13th superstition. Why is the number 13 considered so unlucky? There are many possibilities. First off, in Christianity, Judas, the apostle who betrayed Jesus, was the 13th guest at the Last Supper. In Norse mythology, the god Loki was 13th to arrive at a feast in Valhalla, where he tricked another attendee into killing the god Baldur. On Friday, 13th October 1307, King Philip IV of France ordered the arrest of the Knights Templar, and most of the knights were tortured and killed. but let me give the number 13 some grace. 13 was traditionally considered a lucky number in France prior to the First World War and was used in numerical form as a good luck symbol or on postcards and charms. In baking, a baker's dozen or devil's dozen is one more than a standard dozen. The 13th loaf is called the vantage loaf because it is considered advantageous overall to get 13 loaves for the price of 12. In astronomy, there are 13 star constellations in the zodiac. This can be compared with astrology, which I love, where there are 12 signs of the zodiac. In numerology, the number 13 has many meanings. By some, it is considered to be the sacred number and is considered to be a very karmic number in numerology. The number 13 is associated with the divine and is said to bring good luck and prosperity to those who embrace it. And so, for this 13th episode of my first season, I regard the number 13 more as an angel number. Remember, angel numbers are repeating number sequences ranging from 000 to 999, often used as guides for deeper spiritual exploration. Each has its own distinct meaning. Angel numbers was the topic of episode 11 and goes into more detail about them if you want to check that episode out. In some cultures, the number 13 is said to signify a time of growth and change in one's spiritual journey. It can also symbolize leading with love and compassion and remaining positive in the face of negativity, which I totally embrace this definition because I am in a time of growth along my spiritual journey, and perhaps you are too. And I hope I am leading with love and compassion. I see my friends trying to remain positive in the face of negativity. I see my friends leading with love and compassion. And I try to do that myself. And to me, those are healing components. They are steps in the right direction. So I embrace this meaning of the number 13. Now, what about the belief that knocking on wood or even stating the intention of knocking on wood in order to avoid tempting fate, after making a favorable prediction or boast? Well, this one dates back to ancient pagan times when people believed spirits lived in trees and touching or knocking on the tree would protect them from bad luck. The Psychic Library says knocking on wood was also seen as a thank you gesture to the gods for bringing blessings and good luck. In Irish folklore, touching trees was a way of thanking leprechauns for good luck. I touch and admire trees as I connect with Mother Earth and for grounding purposes to show my respect. What about tossing salt over your shoulder? Throwing salt over your left shoulder is a superstition that is intended to ward off evil spirits or bad luck. Some believe that salt would land in the face of any evil spirit, blinding them and preventing them from carrying out their plans. Some people also carry salt in their pockets to protect themselves from misfortune and witches. In biblical times, salt was expensive and spilling it was considered sacrilegious. To atone, people would throw salt over their left shoulder, which was associated with the devil. In Mahayana Buddhism, tradition after a funeral was to throw salt over the left shoulder to prevent evil spirits from entering the house. Admittedly, I work with salt in some of my rituals. You can cleanse your body of bad luck by bathing in salt water. Simply add 2 tablespoons of salt to a bath of hot water. Another method is to sprinkle sea salt in the corner of each room and underneath each window sill. This is believed to protect your home from bad luck. Where did the belief that walking under a ladder will bring bad luck originate from? It originated in ancient Egypt around 5,000 years ago. The Egyptians believed that the space between the ladder and the wall and the floor was filled with good and evil spirits, and that disturbing them would incur their wrath. The triangular shape of the ladder was sacred to the Egyptians and represented the Trinity of gods. The superstition is also thought to be based on the ancient Egyptian practice of leaving ladders in tombs so that the dead could ascend upwards if they wanted to. In the Middle Ages, Christians believed that walking under a ladder broke the Holy Trinity and invited the devil into your life. In 1600s England, criminals were forced to walk under a ladder on their way to the gallows. In medieval times, ladders were thought to resemble gallows, so walking under one was said to invite your own death. To break this bad luck curse, you need to walk backwards under the ladder, or cross your fingers until you see a dog. Boy, that could take a while in some places. And ancient Egyptians had to put their thumb between their index and middle finger if walking under a ladder was unavoidable. Nowadays, some people even prefer to believe that you can make a wish if you have to walk under a ladder, putting a more optimistic spin on this superstition. What about the belief that breaking a mirror brings 7 years of bad luck? Considering the fact that I was a professional hairstylist for more than 3 decades, I have accidentally broken more than a few mirrors. I am very glad that this superstition wasn't exactly true, or my bad luck sentence could have lasted most of my life. But this centuries-old myth dates back to ancient Roman times and continues to be passed down through societies and generations. The Romans believed that mirrors reflected a person's soul and that the gods could see a person's inner identity through the reflection. They considered it disrespectful to damage or break one. The Romans believed that life renewed itself every 7 years. If a mirror broke and your image was the last thing it reflected, you would have to endure 7 years of bad luck. To counteract the bad luck, some say you can bury the broken pieces of glass in the moonlight or hold them in a river that flows south for 7 hours. But mirrors hold a lot more folklore than just bringing 7 years of bad luck when broken, as if that's not bad enough. According to Mexican legend, putting 2 mirrors opposite each other creates a portal for the devil to enter your house. Again, I'm super glad that's not true because most of the hair salons are set up that way, or at least they were back in the day. Some believe that mirrors can trap the souls of the dead. According to folklore, a person's spirit is said to be imprisoned in a mirror if they see it before the corpse is buried, within usually 3 days of death. Mirrors are thought to tarnish or even take on the appearance of the deceased as a result of this. The practice of covering a mirror following the loss of a loved one is a common one. As soon as a person dies, their spirit is free to roam the universe. So that's another reason to cover a mirror. Also, to keep demons from entering your realm through a portal that the mirrors create. Because some people do believe that the mirror could be a way for demons to get out into the real world, and that keeping your mirrors covered will protect you from demons waiting to jump into the world. Some believe that a woman who looks in a mirror too soon after giving birth will see ghostly faces. Maybe it's the spirits of ancestors trying to watch over the mother and child during birth. Or maybe they want to see the newborn. Or even more sinister superstition in Greece is that many locals believe that a newborn baby shouldn't see themselves in the mirror, as mirrors can capture and trap souls never to be freed again. Everyone has heard of the legend of Bloody Mary. It has become a popular dare at slumber parties. This folklore ritual involves speaking Bloody Mary's name 3 times. Or is it 13 times? But you have to speak it repeatedly in front of a dimly lit mirror to summon her bloody ghost. The myth is that she is summoned to foretell the future. But many tales surround this one, and some suggest she will claw at the unsuspecting victim or scream at you, or reach through the mirror and wrap her hands around your throat, or worse, escape from the mirror and come after you, or some of your loved ones. But what about the superstition that if you step on a crack, you break your mother's back? How on earth did that one ever get started? Well, it literally came from the earth because it was believed that cracks in the earth, whether it be sidewalks, cracks in asphalt, or anywhere on the ground for that matter, that they were portals to the supernatural realm. Humans stepping on cracks may invite or release unwelcome spirits into the human world, and bad luck would come to that person or one's family member. The step on the crack, break your mother's back was more of a chant or rhyme that children like to play along with, which serves to create a playful yet slightly eerie atmosphere. Children enjoy the thrill of superstition and the idea of magical thinking. I also enjoy that. And somewhere I saw that teachers use this chant to scare children away from stepping on the cracks by linking stepping on a crack to a consequence, as it creates a form of control or influence over them. Nothing raises old, creepy superstitions from the dead like wandering around a cemetery. You might think that practicing deep breathing when you pass a cemetery on the way to work is a good way to get grounded, but you also might inhale an evil force or recently departed spirit looking to take up residence in your body, according to an old superstition with origins in the South. The superstition which advises holding your breath when passing a cemetery is still common today in some southern states. And if you're attending a graveside service or standing near a funeral procession, you might want to take a few extra precautions. That's according to the Japanese superstition of tucking your thumb into your fist to protect your parents from death. Also, it's believed if you walk over someone's grave, you will invite bad luck and disturb the spirit resting there. Have you ever considered why it's common for people to wear black to funerals? The custom of wearing black at funerals is an ancient one, but it became more popular during the Victorian era. Black was believed to make the living less visible to the spirits that came to accompany deceased into the afterlife, so that the living wouldn't get mistaken and their souls taken. Church bells can often be heard during a funeral service, but they are not rung to prevent ghosts from entering human hosts. The legend argues that the loud sound keeps spirits from the living people attending the funeral. Other superstitions surrounding the deceased in graveyards are: speaking negatively about the deceased may anger the spirits of the dead. Whistling in a cemetery is considered disrespectful and may summon the devil. Flowers growing over a grave may signify that the deceased led a pure life and entered heaven. Weeds may indicate that the deceased was evil. Some people believe that bodies should leave a house first so the deceased cannot look back at the living. And some people believe that iron fencing around a cemetery contains the souls of the dead and keeps malevolent spirits at bay. Some believe that spirits are more likely to congregate in areas with oak trees, especially if they are gnarled or have branches low to the ground. And some people believe that spirits are more active at night, particularly after midnight and on cloudy, stormy, or blustery days. And some believe that the veil between our world and the spirit world is particularly thin on Halloween night, which is why we're doing this episode as well, and the episodes in October. Which brings me to one of my favorite holidays, Halloween. A time for costumes, tricks, and treats, and a time to touch base with our ancestors. I definitely like to honor my ancestors, not only during Samhain, but other times of the year. Ways to honor our ancestors would be to create a small shrine or a festive altar to honor your ancestors. You can use your family tree as an altar cloth if you know your family history, or you can honor the deceased with a silent supper. And some people choose to use photographs to honor them. Finally, if a relative has died this year, place a candle for them on an altar. Light candles for other relatives, and as you do so, say the person's name aloud. This is a traditional way to honor our ancestors. You can write their names on rocks and throw them into flames around a bonfire, and even dance around the bonfire in honor of your deceased loved ones. Samhain is a time to embrace your roots and honor your ancestors as the old year ends and winter's darkness begins. What about contacting our ancestors? Halloween is the day when the veil is the thinnest, and in history, that's when people like to communicate with the dead. But first, let me ask you, is it safe to try to contact the dead? Only you can answer if you would be comfortable trying to communicate with the deceased. My purpose on this episode is to point out some common sense practices if you are going to attempt communication. The first rule of spirit communication is moderation. The dead have other things to do besides linger here, and they should not be pestered often. That much I do agree with. Limiting communication rights to once or twice a year is wise, as moderation shows respect for the deceased and also cuts down on danger. Spirits with ill intentions sometimes try to take advantage of whoever is performing spirit communication, especially if they really don't know what they're doing. So it is necessary to limit contact with such forces and also take defensive measures for protection. Again, I am not encouraging you to try to contact the dead, but for anyone who is thinking about doing it or who has done it, you need to be very, very careful. First and foremost, be respectful. Show respect and thank any entities you connect with. Be kind and don't engage with any entity that makes you feel uncomfortable or has caused harm even in life. In fact, I highly recommend prayers of protection before and after attempting any spirit communication. This is also where a protective salt ring and or sage cleansing you and your space are highly recommended. Don't use a Ouija board. Unless you're very experienced, don't use a Ouija board or have a seance. In fact, an upcoming episode this month will be about Ouija boards. After your session, cleanse your space with incense, rose water, or the smoke of purifying herbs, such as cedar, juniper, or sage. You can take a hot Himalayan salt bath to energize your aura and purify it. Drink lots of water and eat nutritious food to recharge after communicating with your dearly departed. And please don't try to communicate with spirits as a party game or to impress your friends. The deceased deserve our respect and consideration. Ultimately, whether it is safe or advisable to try to communicate with spirits is a personal decision that should be approached thoughtfully. Or you might just find yourself or someone you care about in a bad situation on a spiritual level or even on a mental level by proceeding haphazardly into such a sacred arena as attempting communication with the dead. So definitely proceed with caution. Whatever you decide to do, remember that life is reserved for the living, and when someone passes, their memory will become a treasure. Hang on to memories and honor your loved ones as you walk through each day, because our most precious gift is to be here another day. Thank you for joining me, and blessings to one and all.